Dr. Robert Jacobs. He's going to serve as moderator and facilitator during this segment of our conference. And he will take you through the introduction and all of that, and our special guest.
Can we just sing a verse and a prayer?
Of course.
And then after I introduce him.
Yes, man. Go ahead.
To God be the glory. Great things he has done, so loved he the world, that he gave us his son who yielded his life, an atonement for sin, and open the life gate that all may come in. This afternoon, it's a real pleasure for me to be here, and I am excited for the session that we are going in just now. I therefore invite us to stand and sing a verse of Where He May Lead Me. We know that hymn, I will go, for I have learned to trust him so. And at the end of the singing, I'll ask missionary you. What's your name? No, she. Missionary Sherwood to lead us in prayer. Where He may lead me. I will go, for I have learned to trust him so.
And I remember 'twas for me that he was slain on Calvary. Jesus shall lead me night and day. Jesus shall lead me all the way. He is the truest friend to me. When I remember Calvary. Praise God.
Let's worship the Lord, church. To you, Lord, be the glory, the praise, and the honor every time and every place, for you are worthy. Hallelujah. We come before your divine presence another time, Father, to solicit your help in what we're about to do. We recognize, Lord, the dragon know that he's on the last lap, and he's doing everything to distract us from your word. So we ask you at this moment that you will empower the speaker, and you will touch down in the hearts of us, the hearers. And I pray that your word, amen, will be settled deep into our hearts to overcome. We now invite your Holy Spirit that will collaborate with your word. For by your word and by your spirit we are overcomers. Until then, keep us in your love and keep your love in us. This I request in Jesus' name.
Amen. Thank you.
How is going?
Leadership is very important, and more so important in the church, the body of Christ. What has happened is that leadership has become even more critical in the 21st century, when as a church and the leaders, we are being bombarded with new frontiers, new things. And hence at times we wonder, how should we proceed? This afternoon we have with us Dr. Duff, who will guide us through that process. And I trust that we will listen intently and keenly as he would provide us with information that would sharpen our skills and help us to be better leaders as we engage the 21st century. And so this afternoon, my friends, we have with us Clarence Duff, a professor, a researcher, a pastor, an author, and a trainer. Clarence Duff is a pastor, professor, social science researcher, and a practitioner with dual doctorates, a PhD in psychology, and a THD, that is a Doctor of Theology. As a professor of psychology, he brings over 2 decades of academic knowledge and experience to the classroom. Where he merges psychological science and neuroscience with theological insight to train future professionals and leaders. A social science researcher, Clarence is currently leading research on childhood trauma, examining its long-term psychological, relational, emotional, and spiritual impact on adult life outcome. His work integrates empirical methodology with neuroscience and a nuanced understanding of human brain development, often informed both academic discourse and community intervention. In addition to his academic accomplishments and contributions, Clarence is an accomplished trainer and consultant for church organizations. He specializes in leadership development, the organizational life cycle, vision casting, and strategic transformation in ministry context. His training sessions empower leaders to navigate growth, lead change, challenge status quo, and manage sustainability and retention within the church organization. Clarence is also a seminar speaker and a group facilitator on topics such as mental health, human sexuality, and marital relationship. His seminars provide biblical, grounded, psychobiological, informed perspective on intimacy, sexual fulfillment, mental health, and covenantal commitment in marriage. An ordained senior pastor, professional counselor, and a biblical teacher, Clarence integrates clinical insights, scholarly depth with pastoral and cultural sensitivity. He is the author having written extensively on topics of prophecy, as well as the intersection of theology, psychology, and Christian living. Through his multi-dimensional scholarship and work, Clarence continues to inspire transformation in individuals, families, couples, congregations, and communities. His life's goal is to lead people to a better understanding of God and self. His favorite Bible verse is, "I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me." And may I add, Clarence is also one of the lecturers at the Church of God Seventh-day Training Institute. It is with distinct pleasure that I invite him at this time to come to the podium and address us.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jacob. And let me take this opportunity to greet conference chairman and his wife, assistant pastor, also Henry Harley is in the house, and his wife, and all of the ministers and workers in the body of Christ. It is with great pleasure that I stand before you today to present this presentation. Now, how do I get it on this? I gave him the flash drive. Okay, it's right. It's right here. So, your theme for the convention has 3 parts. And today I will address the final part, growing God's church. And so I have created a theme, a sub-theme, and it is creating a more relevant church for the 21st century and even beyond. Can I have my... Okay. So I want to clarify a question first before, as we move into this presentation. Spiritual versus non-spiritual aspects of the church. There is a confusion in terms of what is spiritual and what is non-spiritual, or what is material and what is spiritual aspect of the church. What do we mean when we speak of the spiritual and non-spiritual aspects of the church? Is there a spiritual part and a non-spiritual or material part to the church operation? Sometimes we get confused with these two things, and we differentiate material aspect to spiritual aspect, and sometimes that creates confusion. So I want to clarify this as we move forward into our presentation today. I think I'm too far from, yes. So, which of the following will you consider spiritual and non-spiritual? Sharing food and clothes to the needy. Will that be spiritual or non-spiritual? Administering and manage a church's resources. Setting goals and plans for the church's future. Spiritual or? Welcoming visitors. Excommunicating individuals from the church. having social and community events. You're not sure. Solving conflicts in the church. Well, I'm going to suggest to you that everything the church does is spiritual. So I want you to hold that thought. Remember in the days of Peter, what type of persons were selected to share food? If it was mere material, why would they need to be filled with the Holy Spirit and also have good report? Everything the church does or undertake is spiritual, and we're going to show you. In order to build and to create a relevant church, we have to understand the nature of the church. So there are the objectives for today, to discuss what relevance means for a church and what it looks like at the various levels of the church's operation. So the entire presentation revolves around relevance, the relevance of the church. I think I'm going to need someone to change this screen for me because maybe I'm too far. So here's the basis for my presentation today. As long as there are sinful and broken people in the world, God's church is meant to consistently grow numerically and spiritually. Within 60 years, which is at the end of the 1st century AD, from Christ's ascension into heaven, the church grew significantly. At Pentecost, which was the last Pentecost, the first Pentecost was at the Mount of Sinai, when God gave the 10 Commandments orally. At Pentecost, 3,000 men came to the Lord in one sermon. And that was 3,000 men. Women were not counted. So when you count the wives and the children and the servants of these men, we'll get over maybe 15,000. Within a couple months, thousands more were added to the church. Within a few more months after that, another few thousands were added to the church. By the end of the 1st century AD, the church had grown from 12 to 120 to over 3,000, and several thousand more months after Pentecost to 1/3 of the Roman Empire. This is a number of over 20 million converts within 60 years. The Roman Empire was populated. We have a number of about 57 to 72 million people in the Roman Empire by the end of the 1st century AD. 1/3 of that was Christianity. And the Bible tells us that even members of Caesar's own household was converted to Christ. So the church was meant to grow and grow significantly. So this is the basis of the presentation today, is that the church in the 21st century was meant to grow, and there are strategies why the church grow. So the presentation is divided into 4 parts. The first part discusses the meaning and application of relevance. The second part discusses strategies that will make the church more relevant. The third part discusses the task of leadership in shaping the relevance of the church. And the fourth part focuses on making the church more relevant to a digital generation. And I hope there are young folks here, because this is going to be talking to you a lot, this digital generation. So these are the 4 areas, and I usually cover this very fast. And you're going to have some time for questions. So probably one of the most important yet misunderstood dimensions of the church is its relevance. In this presentation, we will discuss what relevance means and should look like in the local church or church organization. So let's take a look at the meaning of relevance. What does relevance mean to you? It's a hypothetical question. And what do you think make the church relevant? So, relevance and its meaning. Relevance is when it is important to the matter at hand. Something is relevant when it is important to the matter at hand. Something is relevant when it is a solution to a current problem. And we may ask a question, what current problems exist in society that can be solved through the church? Something is relevant when it is meeting needs. So ask yourself the question, what needs is our church meeting? What solution is it solving? We can see defining relevance by understanding irrelevance. If we understand irrelevance, we begin to understand what relevance means. So, I don't need you anymore. Your presence is irrelevant. When a product or a service is no longer needed, then it becomes irrelevant. A church will become irrelevant in a community when its services and its product is no longer needed in that community. I don't need it anymore. Your service and product doesn't meet my need. And we ask a question, what need or needs is the church meeting in a community? You don't serve any purpose in my life. My life is fine without your service and your product. Are people saying that the church no longer matters, the church doesn't meet their needs? Then the church becomes irrelevant. You don't contribute anything worthwhile to my life. You don't fill any gap in my life. Does the church fill a gap in the lives of the community and the people who live in the community? Does the church fill a gap? If these are not true, then the church is irrelevant in the community that it serves. It can change for me. So let's consider this question as a research assignment topic. Does Christianity or your church, local church, serve a significant purpose in a postmodern or contemporary society? If so, what purpose does the church serve? Furthermore, how does it go about accomplishing such purpose? So if you answer the first question, that the church serves a purpose, how do you go about accomplishing that purpose? That's a question to every church and every church leader. If a church becomes irrelevant, it no longer grows, and it no longer has retention. People are leaving the church because it no longer fills a gap in their lives. So here are two words. The words are important. Two words are important to relevance. What plus how? What is the need that the church is serving? And how does the church go about meeting it? These are the questions that a church must answer. It must identify the needs in the church, need in the community, and how you go about meeting those needs, how you satisfy. Bear in mind this. If you're in a relationship with somebody and your needs are not met, you're going to be unsatisfied, and eventually that relationship will be compromised. The reason why people separate, the reason why people divorce is because their needs are not being met in the relationship. So the relationship, the other partner, becomes irrelevant to them because your needs are not met. And anywhere you are and your needs are not met, you're going to be unsatisfied, and eventually you're going to want to leave because you no longer feel belong. So relationship breaks up. It no longer satisfies the person's need, and the church and the community is in a relationship. And when the church meets no needs in the community, the church becomes irrelevant to that community. So an important difference. The church must be relevant to the world and also relevant in the world. And there's a difference between relevant to and relevant in the world. So here are some fundamental needs that exist in our postmodern, and we are no longer living in modern society. I want you to understand that. In modern society, modern era, people move by reason, not by feeling. Today we're in a postmodern world where people's life revolves around how they feel. Everything is relative to me. If it's truth to me. All right? Nobody reasons anymore. That's why you don't have much people coming to Bible study. They'll come to worship service. They come to church on Sabbath. They don't come to Sabbath school. They come when the worship begins because they want the feeling, not the knowledge. They don't want to reason. They don't want to think critically. They want to just move by their feelings. So it's a part of that's why you see some of the worship. Every time you see churches, it's full of worship now. You don't see no Bible study anymore. It's all worship because it's a postmodern world that gives into feeling, and the church has bought into that. So here are some fundamental needs in society. Authenticity and identity. People who don't know who they are anymore. This is a need. You walk into a classroom, or you stand before a bunch of individuals and you ask them, answer me this question. And maybe you can think about it too. This question I'm going to ask you. I want you to think about it. Who are you beyond your name, beyond your gender, and beyond your address? Who are you? Beyond your name, beyond your gender, beyond your address, who are you? And see how people struggle to respond to that question. People don't know who they are. And that's a fundamental need. That feeling of authenticity, realness, and who am I? Nobody knows. Society have a need for identity. Belonging, people feel isolated and invisible. Now, this is a core dimension of a church. You want to hold the people that you have, make them feel belong. It's a fundamental need that people are born with. And some have a more need for it than others. They need to feel belong. So the first thing, it's not usually the sermon that wins a person to church, that make a person want to come back. It's not the sermon usually, it's not the Bible study, it's how a person feel when coming to your church. So people want to feel belong. They will leave just like how a man or a woman leave a relationship because they don't feel belong. People will leave your church, they will not come back if they don't feel belong. The church must invest in their hospitality service. The first line of defense, the first thing a visitor experiences when they come to church is the hospitality. And so you see, to win people is people deal with feeling. They want to feel belong. Planning, meaning, and purpose. Now, you ask people this question. What is your purpose? Ask a 25-year-old, what is your purpose? And follow that 25-year-old when they are 40 years old and ask them, what's your purpose? And follow them again when they are 60 years old and ask them, what's your purpose? And they still haven't found it. People do not know what their purpose is. You know why they don't know what their purpose is? Because we do not have a purpose. That may shock you. But before you stone me, hold on a bit. You do not have one. That's why you can't find it. You live until you're 80 years old and you still don't know what your purpose is. And when you ask a Christian, my purpose is to serve the Lord. You don't have one. You are one. God doesn't have love. He is love. He doesn't have peace. He is peace. That's a fundamental difference. You don't search for something that you are. You are purpose, and everything that flows from you is purposeful. Whatever your hands find to do, you do it with who you are, with a purpose. So you are a purposeful being. It's not something you search for external to yourself. It's something that you have. It's something that you impose on the world. We don't search for meaning. We impose meaning on the world. Two persons working in the same job, and one is fulfilled and one is not, because one imposed meaning on what they do and the other one is still searching for meaning. It is not what external to you that gives you meaning. It is you that give external things meaning. And so we live frustrated lives because we do not know who we are and what we are and even whose we are. So people in the world have these needs, and the only entity, the only institution in the world that can meet these needs is the church. There are no institutions out there that can teach people purpose and meaning but the church. So this is a need in society. Relationship building skills. People do not know how to build and to maintain relationship anymore. And this is even not in the church. The church has the capacity to teach relationship building skills. Because people have a need to know, how do I build my relationship? How do I deepen my relationship? How do I connect with my spouse on a deeper level? The church has the information, but we're not giving it to the society that needs it. People come to church broken, they stay broken, and they leave broken. You see, the church has the capacity. We have many programs in our churches, but yet people are still failing in their relationship because they don't know how to build it. One of the courses that I teach is human sexuality. And believe it or not, there are people in relationship that still don't know to satisfy themselves sexually. The church has the knowledge. The church has the capacity. But we're not fulfilling the reason why we exist. To teach the world the truth of God. Truth and authentic spirituality. You may not realize it. Some of you might realize it. That spirituality in the postmodern world has a new definition. You can be spiritual without being a Christian. People now are saying, I am spiritual. I don't have to know God. I don't have to believe in God to be spiritual. We have a new definition for spirituality. Yet there is a yearning in the human person for true, authentic spirituality. And the church is the only entity that can deliver that. Mental and emotional well-being. We have more people in the church that are depressed than anything else. We have more people in the world. Depression and anxiety and mental illnesses have increased significantly in our society. Maybe not in Jamaica here, but in other countries. Maybe you're okay here. But mental illnesses. How many of our programs focus on mental health to help people? How do you prevent yourself from getting mentally ill? This is an important dimension of the church. The church is a teaching entity in the society to be relevant, to draw people from the community, to offer them the service that no other institution can offer them. The church has the capacity, the church has the knowledge, the church has that ability. So you see, there are fundamental needs in our postmodern society that the church and only the church can meet. Can you move to the next screen, please? So here are some strategies for how to make your church more relevant. Whether you're a small church or a large church, here are some strategies. Strategy 1. Create more opportunities for people to serve. People have an inherent need to feel belong and useful. Every age group in the church needs to feel useful. From the children to the seniors. Those persons who are 80 years old, 90 years old, 75 years old, These are individuals that need to feel useful in the church. When people have an inherent need to feel belong and know that they still have purpose. And this is an opportunity to keep people in your church. This is an opportunity to draw people into your church. People need to know that what they do is important. For example, there are individuals, you come here today, the chairs are put out, everything is working, the fans are working, and everything is working. The lights are working, the technology is working. Those individuals, without them, you would not be comfortable today. But how many times we recognize these individuals for what they do? Yet without them, we have a body. And we take care of our faces. We put on nice clothes. And we pay no attention to some of the organs that keep the body going. And when those organs fail, guess what happened to your body? It can't move. So all the attention we put on our outer body, we put less on the inner body, and when those fail. So people need to feel useful. They need to know that what they do is very important. And everybody in the church needs to be celebrated for what they do, no matter how small it is. And those who come to church early, when visitors come, because many of our people, we invite people to come to our church, and we come late, and they turn up, and we are not there. And the one person who is there to open the door plays a significant role. Because people don't understand that time is important. I have this thing about me that if you're going to sing in the praise and worship team, and the praise and worship team is here and you're late, you don't come up here. If you're supposed to play as a musician and you're late, you don't play. It's important that we understand that what we do is important in the church. Invite your teenagers and young adults to serve in ministry. There are so many ministries in the church that can be created for young people and teenagers to keep them in the church. Now, in some countries, like places in Canada, there's large churches, Presbyterian and other kind of those large churches, are there. And most of them are empty. They rent them out to other small churches. So one large church will have few churches worshiping there. What happened to those large churches? What happened to them? You know why many of them have become dinosaurs? Because there's no young people. And when the older people have gone off the scene, there's no one else to take their place. And young people are different. They need a type of music where they can serve. They need a type of ministry where they can exercise their gifts. And if those are not there, we won't keep them. We won't draw them. So we have to understand the nature of young people that will make our church relevant to any generation that we are in. So that's a critical thing for a church to understand and to invest in. So that creates more opportunity for people to serve in the church. Number 2. Who's changing? Strategy 2. Serve beyond the 4 walls of your church. Serve beyond the 4 walls of your church. The real evangelism is out there. It's very important that we understand that the goal of the church is to win the world, not to win those who have already been saved. It's important that we serve, have programs and have ministry that serves the church. It's very, very important. Companies will give things to the church so the church can give. We are charitable, and we must exercise that. No matter how small your church is, if you begin to serve the community, it's very important. All right? Serve beyond the walls of your church. Now we have the opportunity to even preach beyond the walls of our church. All right? Number 3, create a powerful professional social media presence. And we're going to talk about the digital world and how you evangelize the digital world in a few minutes. People in this digital society will not know that you even exist without such a present. There was a time when we have I don't know, remember what we had in Jamaica. We have Yellow Page. Remember those big books with telephone numbers in there? Yeah. Anybody have that in their home now? And you put stuff on it. You use it for different reasons. You don't use it for calling number. Now, if you're not on the internet, if you're not there, nobody knows where you are anymore. We have to adapt to this world in which we live to be relevant. You cannot, if you don't have a page, if you're not on social media, you don't have a presence in the world. So you have to adapt, create a powerful, and it must be professional. You must be professional presence because you're ministering beyond the walls of your church. That's very, very important. And every person that stands here and minister beyond the four walls of a church represents your church. And it tells the world what type of church you are. If you're just fooling around or you are projecting a message of salvation. Create a social media evangelism team. Now this is important. This is a ministry. And this is primarily a ministry for the young. Utilize the young minds in your church. They are technologically smart and efficient. I have a granddaughter. She's 2 years old. Yeah, she's with me with my daughter, but they're not here. They're gone and enjoying themselves. She's 2 years old, and she can take the phone and call her grandmother, and she can she can go on YouTube and watch anything she wants. She's just 2 years old. When I was 2 years old, I haven't seen not even a TV. When I was 10 years old, I don't know what a TV looks like. So now we are in a different world, and the church must understand that. And every pastor and leader and group leader needs to understand the type of world in which we live to make our church grow. So utilize a young mind. One of the things that I've done is have a social media ministry. And that is controlled. That is external to the church. Social media, they take care of everything on the other side of social media. So I go on Instagram, a church is there. Wherever you go, the church is supposed to be there. But the pastor can't do that. Many of our pastors don't even know how to get there. But our young people know. Give them the ministry. Empower them to give the world the message of the gospel. They know more about the cyber world than most older person does. Young people are great resources in this area. Utilize them. They'll stay in the church. Empower them to serve, and your church will be known out there. Make sermons and teachings relevant to people's need. One of the things that I did before COVID, we haven't started up again, is that some Sabbath school, we don't have teaching. We invite the community to come in and ask any question they want. Invite them to come in and ask any question. And we answer their question, and that would be our Sabbath school. Just responding to the questions of the society and people who come in. Make it adjustable to the needs of the people. Make sermons and teaching are strategic opportunities to address critical issues. So when a preacher stands to preach, the sermon must be relevant to the needs of the people. It shouldn't just be about the Bible stories. Make the Bible story relevant to the life of the people. People are broken. People are broken relationships. They don't know how to form relationship. We have young people in the church who don't know how to select a spouse. We have people who are married who don't know how to sustain their marriages. We have people who don't know how to do the things they need to do. The teachings and the sermons must be relevant to their needs, to educate people. Preachers need to develop their presentation skills, knowledge of current issues. What are the issues affecting people? Children are going to school. And they're learning about homosexuality. They're learning about that they could become anybody they want. Our children, they go to these schools. Well, I don't know in Jamaica, but I know where I'm from. Little children, if a little girl said to her mom, you know, Mom, I feel like I'm a boy. She can't do anything about it. Her children are going to school and they are being re-educated. The church has a responsibility in our children programs, in our children class, to teach them about who they are as human beings, what it means to be a boy, what it means to be a girl, or else we lose them when they reach grade school and high school and we wonder what happened. The foundation wasn't set. It's good to learn Bible stories, but how do we apply it to the current situation and make our teaching relevant for our children so we don't lose them? Does that make sense? Sorry, can you go back a little bit? We encourage our young people to pursue higher education, but do not prepare them theologically. When they go to school, they learn about human evolution. And every book, every textbook, from the kindergarten to university, is built on the theory that we evolved from lower class of animals. These are issues, human sexuality and evolution. Making our church relevant is also teaching our little children about who they are. So when they go to school, they're not fooled by the deception that are out there. So our teachings and our sermon must be geared towards making our church relevant for the children, for every age group, and for seniors. You can change to number 6. Create more vibrant and exciting ministries. One of the first things that I had learned when I took over the church where I am in Brampton, and we started off with just a few members. I don't remember, maybe 15, somewhere around there. One of the first things that I learned is that what makes a church grow is having ministries. I remember, and I built that understanding from the book of Acts. And the philosophy is, where there is a need, there must be a service. Look in your society, there's a need for fire station. There's a need for ambulance service. There's a need for hospital, where you cannot build a community. You cannot build a city that does not have a hospital. You cannot build a community or a city that does not have emergency services. And how they structure the city is that where the fire station is, wherever the fire home is, they must be able to reach there on a given time limit. So when they build that, when they build a city, they have to think of the emergencies and people's need and how they can cater for those needs in the society. And so I learned that. I learned from the book of Acts when the apostles were busy and feeding, managing food service. And they couldn't manage it because people were still complaining. The Grecian women were still complaining that they were not being taken care of and that there seemed to be prejudice and cultural bias. So the disciples realized that there is a need and there must be a service to that need. There must be a ministry to that need. And that they couldn't do that. So they selected men carefully to manage that. They created the deacon ministry to take care of the need that existed. That taught me wherever there is a need in the church, there must be a service to service that need. There must be a ministry. So I realized very early, and you have children, and I tell people, churches, if you have 2 children, if you have 1 child, you must have a children ministry. Because children not only draw children, children draw other children, and when you draw children, you draw young families. And if a church does not have young children, you don't have young families. And so I learned that there must be a children ministry. There must be a senior ministry to take care of the older people that they feel useful. that somebody will get your medication for them if they can't get it. Take them home. Because if you take care of seniors, they have children who will think of if their children want to go to a church, they go to a church and take care of their parents. So here, we're evangelizing in this context by creating ministries in our church. Where there are ministries, you're taking care of services. For example, and I mentioned that, young children, if a visiting family comes to your church and the next week the child says, Mom, I don't want to go back, more than likely the parent's not going to come back. But if the children say, Mom, I want to go back, Dad, I want to go back, they will want to come back. That's how McDonald's work. McDonald's exists not for children, but there was the days when McDonald's just started, where everything was for children. But it really wasn't for children. It was for their parents, because children don't work. So here's the understanding. The world is wise as to how to get people and get into their pockets, and the church falls behind. So here we make a church relevant for the 21st century is to take care of the needs in our society. Let children. One of the things that when we gave our children an entire Sabbath, the first time we did it, we give children the entire Sabbath. They do everything. They will lead worship, and they lead praise and worship. And somebody said to me that children can't bless them. That total ignorance, of course. You don't lose children. You don't lose your family. And you get them to grow up in the church. Next, number 7. Innovate and use technology for ministry work. There's nothing praiseworthy about being outmoded and irrelevant. Innovation attracts everyone, from children to seniors. Innovate from the children classes to how you advertise your day's program. And I see how you advertise your program. Nobody walking around with booklet anymore. It was take their because everybody has a phone. You take your phone, take a camera, and there you go. The program just pop up on your phone. That's innovation. That's technology. And you become more efficient when you do these things. And guess what? I'm sure younger folks who are leading this charge. Gone are the days when you have print all these programs, cost so much money. Number 8. Innovate and use technology for ministry work. Online discipleship and small groups. You don't meet all the time, but you can hold people together. You hold people. I remember talking to many pastors after COVID. Some churches have to close after COVID, because what happened, COVID changed the way the world operates. And there were churches that were not meeting online during COVID. They were not utilizing technology. So they lose money because they didn't have the technology. And I heard yesterday that, people could pay by, Interact and stuff like that. That's innovation. That's innovation. And there are churches that had to close after COVID because people are not coming back. Literally closed. They had no money to pay their mortgage or their rent because they didn't prepare for the emergency. So online Bible discipleship and small groups, launch online Bible studies, and I see that you have one. I watch Pastor Harley sometime on Friday night in the Bible study. You see, you move beyond the 4 walls of your church. Oh, thank you, my friend. That's innovation. Zoom, and you can have meetings on Zoom. You can have Bible study and prayer meeting on Zoom, and even fasting on Zoom. Social media outreach. Develop a content strategy for Instagram. TikTok. Let me see the hands of all those who know Instagram, who have Instagram and TikTok and stuff like that. See, I don't see a lot of the older folk putting their hand up, but I see a lot of younger folks. See that? They know everything. TikTok, Instagram, and each of these are different. And the YouTube to share micro sermons So and I'm going to show you in a bit how that works. Testimonies and inspirational clips, mental health and counseling support online, offer virtual counseling sessions or pastoral care appointments online. They draw people from the community. All right, these are strategies. Number 8, create a culture of learning. A culture of learning in your church makes needed change easy to accomplish. If your church is not a learning church, to make a simple change, it's tough. It's difficult because people tend to resist change. We all do. And so creating a culture of learning, make learning a mandate across the entire scope of your church. Encourage a safe to ask questions environment. Leaders and pastors shouldn't be afraid of questions that people ask, and they will ask tough questions. All right? It must be an environment where everyone, especially the young, they're coming from school, they go to university, they have questions to come. Where are they going to ask it if it's not in church? And especially in the Sabbath school, when they're asking questions, don't put them off. They need to know. Give them an answer. An environment where young people and everybody knows that I can ask any question I want and get a reasonable, good answer. Now, pastors do not have answers to everything, and they will say to you that, I'm going to get back to you. All right? Use sermon and teaching series to teach fundamental doctrines as well as address practical sermons. I know in the days, I don't know for here, but I know in the days past, every day, every Sabbath is a different person preaching, and so you got to give everybody a chance to preach. Well, I believe those days should be gone. I believe that sometimes, here is what happened. You know why there are churches that grows? Because there is a central voice. There's a central voice in the church. Other people get opportunities, of course, but people get to be accustomed to that pastor who brings a sermon, a series. Create a series sermon, an entire month where the pastor preaches in a series. Series 1, series 2, addressing a issue, and he preaches. And nobody said, why is the pastor preaching so often? It's his job. His job is to give the word. And pastors must begin to develop series. So when, for example, here's what happened, because we're on YouTube, you're on YouTube, a person listens to your sermon, you have a theme. The person wants to come back next week to listen to that theme. And the next week, because your series applies to them. It could be about relationship, and they want to hear number 2, number 3. This is a strategy to get people attracted to your ministry. And even people in the church invite your friends. The pastor is having a series on relationship for this month. We need you to invite your family to listen. You draw people. So the sermon is strategic. But if you have everybody, every different, because you got to give this person a chance and give that person a chance. And if you don't give that person a chance, they're going to complain. That's the whole days. To make our church relevant, we have to do things differently. So the pastor must now take time to create a series of sermons. And that takes time, and we'll go into that next time. Now, number 9, create an environment. Now, this is more relevant in our country than in here, than in Jamaica, which you have generally just one culture. Your church shouldn't just cater for your own ethnicity. And it does apply here also. It does apply anywhere that there are people of different ethnicity. And the church is built for everybody. And it shouldn't just be one type of ethnicity and one type of culture. So adjust the cultural lingo when you are preaching or teaching publicly so that everyone can understand. If what we say cannot be understood by others, they won't be inclined to come back or visit. It's more applicable. Well, we have an open system now. You have an open system. You're on YouTube and people are listening to you from all over the world, from China, from India, from everywhere in the world. And then they must understand the words that you speak. You're not just speaking to the public. And I tell my preachers this all the time. When they are speaking to the congregation, when they are speaking, they're not only speaking to only Jamaicans. They're speaking to a wider audience that may not know what you're saying. And therefore, it must be adjusted for the wider audience. Okay, number 10. Give people a worship experience. I've done a little bit of research on the impact of worship. Worship is a more powerful evangelistic strategy than most people realize. It affects people's feelings at the level that other experiences cannot. During meaningful worship, powerful neurochemicals are released from the brain. In fact, one Hebrew word for worship is healing. A person goes to the gym and work out. A person meditates for long hours. The body produces certain chemicals that create healing in the body. Worship does the same thing. So when we worship, we're not only responding to the goodness of God, but our body is producing certain chemicals, neurochemicals and hormone that releases stress and build our immune system. So you see, worship has many benefits. So when we give people a meaningful experience, we take them out of the mundane. That's why this means special selection, process, attention, and resources should be allocated to the music and worship ministry. They need to have good equipment, investing in good equipment. And the worship team, I love your worship. It is amazing. And your singers are just awesome. You got some good, we have to import some of your singers. Take them away from you. And you got some awesome singers here. But the church must invest in their music ministry. And people who invest themselves, good equipment so that they can project their voices and they don't strain their voices. Good equipment for them to sing and motivate them. So investment must be, this is a ministry, it's a service. And music and ministry in our church holds young people, right? It holds them and it stimulates them. And in fact, you may realize this. There were times when the Spirit of God, when God wanted to speak to Isaiah in the Spirit, and he told Isaiah to sing for those who sing. And as they sing and play, the Spirit of God falls upon Isaiah and he prophesied. So worship is important. The Spirit of God. So I said to my worship team, they have to practice. They have to practice so that when they sing, it's good. I always say to them, it's a ministry that you're ministering to people. And you are leading them in the very presence of God. And that's an important ministry that must be catered for. Number 11. Develop a strategic plan for the church, no matter its size. Even if you have 3 people, 10 people, it doesn't matter. A church needs a long-term as well as a yearly strategic plan to know where it's heading and to build an effective and relevant ministry. Successful strategic planning requires close collaboration between senior leadership and other leaders in the church. That means all the leaders in the church must come together. All pastors must learn how to develop strategic plans and goals for their local church. Doesn't matter the size. So every year, you must have a plan as to where that church is going at the end of the year. Number 12. Let everything, and this is maybe one of the most important points, let everything the church does be purpose-driven. And this, I've worked for companies where they have parties and they have barbecues, and all of those are purpose-driven. Now, why does the church exist in the first place? There are 2 reasons why the church exists, 2 fundamental reasons. To win people and to build them up. To win them and to build them up. That's it. Prepare them for the kingdom of God. The answer to this question is what drives and gives purpose to everything the church does, from social events, charitable activities, programs, and everything else in between. Absolutely, and I'm using the term absolutely here, everything the church does must be defined by its mission and its vision. And what does this mean? Now, I have this, there is, in my church, it's a form that every ministry must fill out when they're putting on a program. And this form tells me how many people they expect, and what's it going to cost, and what's the purpose. It has to align with the mission and vision of the church. Now, we have social program. We have social. Well, even our guys meet to play dominoes. We have domino games. And I say to my men and women who play domino, because some women can very good too. So I say to them, listen, when we are playing games, there's a purpose for it. There's two purposes. When we are playing games, whether we are playing domino or we are playing whatever game you're playing, sometimes we lose who we are. We're playing domino and we invite unsaved. It's an opportunity. We have our church where part of a church where we gather for social and we play domino. And there was this visitor who came, and it gave me an opportunity to talk to him while we were playing domino. And that man has not stopped coming to church. So sometimes we are playing and we lose the focus. We're playing a game. We invite visitors, but it's an opportunity to evangelize them. They need to see the Christian. You can't be fighting and shouting. It's an opportunity. Everything the church does is for a purpose. We have a barbecue. There are neighbors who will never come to a church, but they'll come to a barbecue. The barbecue is an opportunity to evangelize them, to invite them, because here's what I've learned, and this is psychological, but it's also biblical. I realize that if you do a favor for somebody, they becomes obligated to you forever. You're in the supermarket and you're paying for your goods and you're short, let's say, $10 or $5 or even $1, and the person covers it for you. Wherever you see that person of a need, you're going to meet it. You have become eternally obligated to that person. So when we're having a barbecue and we invite, and they don't want to pay for it, we invite them to come and eat free. Then, church is having a program, and we said, hey, I want to invite you to my church. They tend to come because you've already made connection with them. So everything the church does must be purpose-driven. It's about building God's church. And that's an opportunity you have to grow your church. And that's why I say to people in my church, every ministry must be purpose-driven. You're here to evangelize. Children must evangelize children. Seniors evangelize seniors. Every program must be driven by the mission and the vision of the church. So you're always winning people because the ministries in there are actively engaged and purpose-driven. Next slide. So here are some major tasks of leadership. Vision casting. Vision is a clear picture of a desired future. It answers the question, where are we going? And this is primarily for those who lead, whether you lead a ministry or you lead a church. Where are we going? Here is what a vision does. It paints a picture of where the church is going. It motivates the congregation to commit and move forward. It provides direction to the congregation because people generally don't know where they're going. It requires a leader. You take away your pastor and the church falls apart. And we don't begin to appreciate our pastor enough. All right? We need churches of God, Seventh Day, need to appreciate their pastors more. Now, you don't want to say amen. That's okay. You need to show appreciation. Have appreciation day for your pastor. Send him on holiday. Put together and said that we're going to give you a holiday. Ladies and gentlemen, did you hear what I said? He will serve you forever. Because they have a big job. It provides direction to the congregation. It is synonymous with why the church exists. The vision. Without a vision, the people perish. And without the people, the vision also perish. Here is why vision is a task of effective leadership. Leaders are called to see beyond the present, what others may not see or believe possible. Because vision tends to drift, leaders are called to protect it from distractions and to remind the congregation why it matters. The leaders are able to communicate vision in a way so people can see the big pictures. Leaders have the ability to adapt the vision to changing circumstances. Things changes. Things changes. It may seem that it can't work, but the leader sees it. I was sharing with someone when we were worshiping in a gym. We had about 30, 40, 50 people. And every Sabbath, and we couldn't have prayer meeting there, so we had prayer meeting in my basement. My basement was also secondary church. We would meet for fast and prayer meeting. So every Sabbath morning, because they had gym in the Friday night, we had to come and clean the place and take out the chairs and pack the chairs, and it was quite a task. And then we have to sit with our suit and clothes and chair in the gym. And so I said to the brethren, we need a place of our own. We need to buy our own place, and even though we didn't have. So we began to look for places, and we saw this building, and we couldn't get to go inside. It was night. And so as we walk away, it was three of us, and we said, let's just lay around in the building and tell God to give it to us. And we did that, and we just left it. Then we went back, and then we saw inside the building. It was huge. It was 18,000 square feet. And it was a factory, a tool and die factory. It was black and dirty and greasy. But I saw the potential, and so we engaged in trying to accomplish it. At this time, we only had something. We didn't have much money in the bank. And so we went to the bank, and the bank said, we can't give you money. You don't have enough people. You don't have enough income. And so we went to a private lender. The private lender said the same thing. We don't have enough people. You don't have enough income. We can't lend. Prior to that, about a month or so before I had this job, I was the academic dean of this institution, and I was going to resign, begin to pack my stuff to take home, and I had a dream. And I dreamt that I was driving a very fast car across a bridge. And as I drove the car, I was going too fast. I couldn't negotiate the bridge, and so I crashed. I woke from the dream, and I understood what the dream was saying to me. And I told my wife I'm not going to quit the job. I don't know why, but my dream tells me that it's not time yet. Prior to that, I had an opportunity to teach a university, asked me to teach a course, and mythology and dream. This is prior to that, maybe about a year before. And as I was halfway in the semester, as I was teaching the course, I was standing in the middle of the school. It's a secular institution. And suddenly, I felt I understood how to interpret dreams. And I asked the student to tell me their dreams, and I began to tell them the answer to their dream. So when I got that dream, I understood what it means. The dream says, you're going too fast. Do not quit this job yet. So I didn't. So I went to the lender, and the lender said, you don't have enough money. We can't lend you. And so I had an idea. An idea came to me as to how to solve this problem. And the idea was with the institution that I was working. The building was large enough to host a training aspect for school. So I went to the president and said, look, I have an opportunity for the school that the people who live in that area, we could facilitate them by offering courses in the building that we're trying to acquire. And he agreed, and I said I would need a letter and how much we are willing to negotiate for you to pay us. He gave us a letter, brought it to the lender. The lender looked at the letter and says, I know this guy. We grew up together as boys. And he said, I can give you the loan, but you need a second mortgage. I said, I cannot afford a second mortgage. He said, that's the only way you can get it. So I went back, this was a Saturday evening. I went back to my church Saturday, and I said, we need several hundred, I forget, $1,000, several $1,000 to cover the second mortgage. I will need it by Monday. And by Monday, or that week, we had all the money to cover a second mortgage. Members took out their credit card to go on their line of credit, and they came up, and we didn't have a second mortgage. When they see the plan, they saw the vision. They saw the plan. They felt it, and they came up with the money. We paid them all back, and we acquired the building. But the thing now, we only have a few members, and we couldn't carry the mortgage each month. And at that time, so the members were helping us to pay the mortgage. We put our hat very high. And so an African church came to us and said, look, we'll buy this building for double what you pay for it. We were sitting in the boardroom, and I look across from them and said, God, give it to us, and we're not going to sell it. Even though we can't afford it, we're not going to sell it. And we didn't. And within the space of a year or so, we had enough members to cover the mortgage easily. And I was very ambitious. I said, now that we have the building and we're worshiping on concrete and we washed the ceiling and the floor, I said, we're going to go beyond that. We want to make it into a modern sanctuary, and those of you who came to a church will see that. And I said I wanted it to be completed in three or 4 months. And we began to bring in contractors. The contractor said, how much you going to, we got the design and everything, how much you going to do this? I said, well, this is going to cost you $1 million. We only have $60,000 in the bank by now, $60,000 in the bank. The contractors are going to be $1 million. Some say $1 million, $1.5 million to complete what you want. And so we have a brother in our church, he's an electrician, and we say, give him the contract. And within a year, it cost us almost $1 million. We started with $60,000, and by the end of the year, it was completed, and we have our program. So you see that what I'm saying here is that when people see the vision, when they see the start, they are mobilized because this is theirs. I remember Nehemiah, when Nehemiah said, we're going to fight for our children. We're going to fight for our family. That's what Winston Churchill said. When the Germans were coming and they didn't have anything else to fight, Winston Churchill stood up in Parliament and he said, we'll fight them on the sea. He didn't have anything to fight with. We'll fight them on the sea. We fight them in the street. We fight them in the mountain. Nehemiah said exactly something like that. And mobilize the people. The walls were torn down for 141 years. And in 52 days, the walls was completed. That's what vision is. You can accomplish the impossible. So, leaders set the tone. Leaders are able to communicate vision in a way that so people can see the big picture and feel it. And they'll push their hat above. Now, we didn't have the money. All our members come. They give us $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, $50,000. And we said, we'll pay you back anything you needed. And little by little, they are all paid back. That's the idea of vision. And we started off not knowing where we were going. I didn't even know. I just said, well, here I tell myself this. And I said to my other men, I said, look, we have to look at some of the incomes that we can get. People will give, we can do this, we can do that, and everything we put together, and God work it out. God work it out. Leaders have the ability to adapt the vision, to change it. The next one, please. Thank you. The vision must be something, and this is something I've learned. Vision must be something, must be realistic, but this is what you learn in school, that you don't set your hat where your hands can't reach. But that's a myth. If you only put your hat where your hand can reach, you'll never stretch. You'll never know your true potential. You must always put your hat where your hands cannot reach it. So you have to stretch more. You have to climb. So you set yourself for the sun. You don't get the sun, you get the moon. But you'll never get the earth. The vision must be something, must be realistic, but must be perceived as relatively impossible to achieve because of its scope. So people say, no, you can't reach it, Pastor. This is impossible. But the pastor sees it. And if there's no path, you create one. The timeline to achieve the vision must be set relatively short, so it is also perceived as impossible to reach. And that's how you stretch yourself. I tell students this. If you go to a class where you get A's so easily, you'll never feel that you have accomplished anything. But if you go to a class that is hard to receive an A and you get a B, you're going to feel accomplished. And that's what leaders need to understand. Don't just, I didn't tell you this. When we were in with only the few people in the gym, I said to the brethren, we're going to buy 500 chairs. We're going to import 500 soft chairs. Where are you going to put them? We only have a few members. Today, those chairs are in our church. We said we're going to buy a podium. Even though we're in a gym, we're going to buy a podium that can serve for the next how many years? And we still have the podium working in our church now. You never plan for today, you plan for next year, but you organize the stuff you need now for then. If you have 30 people, don't buy 30 chairs, buy 50 or 60 chairs, because you're planning for growth. That's what leaders do. People say to your leader, we only have 30, well, we're going to buy 54. You're not buying for those 50, you're buying for those who are coming. That's what leaders do. They set the standard high and stretch towards it, and they allow people to stretch towards it, and then they hone it. And when people invest in a church, they won't want to leave, because this is mine. And it's okay if they want to claim their seat. So it must be high standard. Next one, strategic planning. This is defined as the process where leaders define long-term goals, identify priorities, and outline the action and resources needed to achieve the vision. Strategic planning requires answers to the following question: where are we now? So the leaders look, well, we are 30 people, we're 100 people, we are 200 people, this is where we are now. Where do we want to go after a year? How many baptisms we want, even though God is in charge of saving people, but he's using us as tools. Remember that. So how are we going to plan to fill the other chairs that we have? Where are we going? Where do we wish to go? How can we get there from where we are? This is a plan, the roadmap. What are the resources we will need to get there? We need money, we need time, we need people. What action step do we need to take to get there? The leader lay out the plan, and step by step, you achieve the goal. Next. Strategic planning is a task of leadership because leaders are called to turn the vision into actionable steps. Leaders are called to align people, resources, and activities in ways that can achieve the vision. Leaders provide direction and focus regardless of distraction. Leaders are not easily distracted. There's conflict in the church. And people say, but Pastor, we can't bring people in the church when we're having conflict. Look at the New Testament church. They were having conflict and they were growing like crazy. Do not let conflict in the church stop the church from growing. Because if you stop to be distracted with, you see what happened to the disciples? When there was conflict about food, it did not stop them. They provide ways to solve it and they move on. The Bible said the church grew. So don't believe that conflict in the church is supposed to stop the church from growing. It will fuel the church to grow. Remember that. Leaders provide direction regardless of distraction. You know, there's a church that rent from us from the very beginning. And I sat with the pastor, and they had a very small congregation when they start. Very small. And I sat to the pastor and I said to them, because, you know, in First Day Church, they have church and they just go home. And we don't do that. We feed our people, like I was fed yesterday. So I sat to the pastor and I said to him that it was a pastor, a male pastor first. And I said, look, I know when you have church, you just have a short service and go home. But here's what, if you really want to grow, here's what you do. After service, provide coffee and whatever, you know, snack for your people. Let them have a snack. And he heard me, and after service they would have a snack, and people stopped to kind of fellowship, a little bit of fellowship. And as a result, they begin to grow because people love food. And that's why I have this policy in my church that every Sabbath we feed people. We provide food for every single person, for visitors. And I said, we're not going to change this policy simple because when people come, it may not be the sermon who draw them. It gives me an opportunity to sit with people and to talk with them. It gives members an opportunity to greet visitors and to let them know we are human beings and we care. People love food. We love our bellies. And so wherever there's if you come to a church and there's no food after service, you're not going to want to come back. And so that's important. Now, next. So now, here's a difficult one. Leading change. Change is the transformation or adaptation to a new way of doing things. Forces for change are both internal and external. Internal forces, social trend, cultural and demographic changes, political shift, economic, technological advances, internal forces, degree of progress, knowledge and growth and lack of impact, ineffectiveness and low satisfaction, etc. The leader is the one who leads changes. If a church doesn't change, if an organization doesn't change, it will become stagnant and it will become a dinosaur. People who do businesses, for those of you who do business, you do case studies and organization and why they sustain so long, why they live so long. Like Colgate and other brand, they survive all kind of issues and they still remain because they adapt to the changes. They change their process, they change things in order to continue to maintain their position and their relevance in society. Colgate is still relevant. Regardless of how many other versions you have, it's still relevant. People still is committed to the brand. It survived. Coca-Cola and Pepsi-Cola and other, these brands survive many years because they adapt to the changes of the time. And therefore, leading change is a task of only leadership. Change must occur in our churches or we become stagnant and non-growing. And the leader must identify areas that need to change. Next slide. When does a leader know when to make changes in a church? Here are some questions leaders ask. Is what we are doing helping us fulfill our God-given mission and vision? If what we are doing is not helping us achieve that, then that must change. Is what we are doing helping people grow spiritually? If it's not, it must change. Is what we are doing leading numerical growth? If not, it must change. Is the membership unmotivated and declining and something needs to go? Something needs to change. Next. Our current program ministry is bearing fruit in change lives, discipleship, and community impact. What are we doing that no longer serve the purpose God has called us to? Is there clarity and ownership of the vision across all leadership levels and ministries? Will the community notice? It should be us. Will the community around us notice if a church ceases to exist? Will the community in which a church exists, will they notice that you're gone if you're gone? Or will life just continue and they won't even miss you? It means that you were not relevant in that community. How are we equipping members to live as faithful believers in a postmodern digital world? All of these require some changes. I remember before COVID, there are some churches that would not collect offering with any digital mean and Sabbath because they considered breaking the Sabbath. After COVID, when COVID hit and after COVID, many changes were made. You see that? Next, please. Here is a church, like anything else, have a life cycle. It has a growth period, stability, maintenance, and then it begins to decline. And leaders must be sensitive to when the church is declining. When the church is declining, people are no longer motivated, they're no longer growing, and they don't want to come back to church. It means that something needs to change. So the life cycle of a church tells you when the church needs to make some changes. Next. Now, this is an important book in the Bible that I love it so much. Nehemiah. And Nehemiah came to the situation. I'm going to just go back. Just go down. Keep going. I'll tell you when to stop. Keep going. Oh, stop here. Here is everything you learn about leadership academically. You can learn it from the book of Nehemiah. And Nehemiah cast a vision. Nehemiah prayerfully planned. Nehemiah secured resources and permission. Nehemiah assessed the situation. Nehemiah communicated the vision to the elders. Nehemiah mobilized and delegate work. Nehemiah motivate and encourage people. one of the things that Nehemiah did that is important for leadership is that regardless of the situation, Nehemiah was always up front. He was always visible. He was always working. He never come down. And one time they told him to hide in the temple. He said, should a man like me run and hide when there's work to be done? So he managed opposition and conflict. He ensured security and community and continuity. He implement policies and reforms. And he celebrates success and dedicating the work to God because it belongs to him. Next. Now, this is the final part. And this is a leadership task as well as a lot of young folks. And I hope that young people will listen to this. Understanding and making the church relevant to a digital generation. This is, I have a phone. And there are times when I'm halfway where I am going, and I realize that I don't have my phone. I turn back and go back on my phone. I cannot leave my phone. I cannot leave my phone. I gotta have my phone with me. Now, in this final section, I will discuss some ways of how to make our church relevant to the digital generation. For example, can you go back a little? For example, by embracing digital tools for outreach while maintaining its core mission of discipleship and community, the church can effectively bridge generational gaps and guide the digital generation toward a life of faith, purpose, and relational depth. Next slide. So, evangelistic strategies for a digital generation. Let's take a look at some of them. Next. A closer look at digital evangelism. What really is a digital evangelism? Conceptualizing digital world, social media networking evangelism, becoming a hotspot, updating your profile. Let's quickly run through these. Digital evangelism. Digital evangelism refers to the use of digital platforms, technologies, and online media to share the message of the gospel and engage people in spiritual conversations. It involves leveraging tools such as social media, website, blogs, podcasts, video, live stream, mobile apps, and online communities to reach audiences who spend much of their time in digital spaces. If I go on Facebook, and as I'm scrolling down Facebook, I want to see my church clipping on Facebook. So people on Facebook, as they scroll, they need to see your church. A clipping of the sermon. A clipping of the lesson that want them to say, I need to hear more of this. I want to hear more. And then they go to the site. And then you hold them on the site. But the pastor can't do this. He needs young minds who understand how to navigate cyberspace. Next slide. There are three pillars of evangelism. One is the encounter. I call it encounter evangelism. And we saw that when Jesus met the woman. The place and the contact is important. And cyberspace is a place and a contact. It's a world all by itself. Friendship, relational friendship. Evangelism requires contact. It requires relationship. And it requires service. And we see all that in Jesus' ministry. Next slide. Here is a definition of what evangelism is. Evangelism is making connection with people. And who are these? Prospect, your relatives, your friends, your co-workers, your neighbors, your classmates, your associates, your customers, and everybody else. And who and where will you find them? You find them on Facebook, you find them on Instagram, you find them on Twitter, you find them on TikTok, you find them on Snapchat, you find them on YouTube. And each of these, for example, Facebook, you can share sermons, testimonies, etc. Instagram, you can share videos and photos. Twitter, you can post and interact with messages, tweet. TikTok, you can use it as outlet for self-expression, singing, dancing, and whatever else. Snapchat, used for for a range of things like video and clothing and whatever, and chatting, whatever, and then YouTube. So who knows more about this platform than young folks? They can bring people to the church. If we use our young people to take care of digital evangelism, they have friends. Young people have friends more than anybody else. And let me continue, because I'm almost finished. Next slide, please. The uniqueness of cyberspace environment for evangelism. People tend to be more open and honest with their thoughts, feelings, and needs than face-to-face. Because nobody's seen them face-to-face. You'll be surprised what they share on these platforms. They share their deepest secret. They tend not to be as hurried as in face-to-face conversations. Anywhere, anytime, connectedness. Cyberspace speeds up communication and many types of social processes, making it often easier than face-to-face to share information. Next slide. This is how your brain works. Transferring information through excitement. I listened to, that old gentleman who gave his testimony yesterday sometime. And he was very excited when he was sharing his testimony. If you share something good news, you're excited. If you were a gambling person, for example, which we're not gambling person, you shouldn't be a gambling person. Shouldn't win what other people loses. So let's say, for example, hypothetically, you're a gambling person, and you buy a number. I don't know what they have in Jamaica here, but you buy something. And you realize that you win millions of dollars. Are you going to sit and say, okay, yeah, that's all right. Anybody could win. You'll do that only if you're depressed. But you'll be excited to share. Everybody now knows. Your cousin, your uncle, your friend, your enemy know that you're rich. Excitement. When you get something, you want to share it with others. Like fire shut up in your bones. That's how your brain works. It lights up when it gets information, and it transfers it right away. Next slide. So sharing information and receiving information is what the brain does, and it's what we should do in our temporal life. Now, next slide. So here is a little example of a young person in the cyberspace world. You are a free Wi-Fi. Everybody is connected to you. And you are Wi-Fi for Jesus Christ. Twitter, Snapchat, TikTok, your relative, your friend, whatever it is, they're all connected to you. You are a free Wi-Fi. Next slide. Conceptualizing the digital world as an extension of our minds. The digital world becomes now an extension of our mind. We cannot live without it. We cannot go back to the days when we used to be. It's impossible. Once we have tasted it, we cannot go back. It's an extension of our minds. Everything we do is connected to somehow to the digital world and the generation. A transitional space between you and others. You are connected. You can speak to somebody 1,000 miles away. You can send a message, a tweet, a part of a sermon that you have that is downloaded by the audio team or the social media ministry on Instagram. You can take that and you can send it to 1,000 friends. The sermon of the day, you can send that to 1,000 friends. Or young people should be encouraged to take the sermon and to send it all over and to build up your social media presence. And those who are around, we have people in our church who have come because of our social media. Entire family who has come from far because of our social media. Your community, everybody in Jamaica has a phone. I see people, I only have one phone. I only have one phone. And I see people with 2, 3 phones. And I'm wondering, I can't even afford my one phone. So everybody's connected. This is an opportunity for the church to grow in the digital age, but we have to be relevant. When we understand the digital world to be an extension of our minds and a transitional space between self and others, it becomes an open door for all types of opportunities, one of which is evangelism. The door of opportunities open in the realm for evangelism is endless. Next slide. You are a hotspot in cyberspace. Everybody is connected to you, whether they are in pain, whether they are addicted, whether they are feel rejected, whether they are abused, whether they need identity, whatever. You are an hotspot and you're connected to them as a young person or an older person in the church. You are connected to hundreds and thousands of people, and the church should not be empty. When the church is having something, like you're having a convention, every young people, everybody who's connected in a space should have a visitor in convention. People should be overflow all over around there because it's convention and all your friends know, your teachers, your co-workers know, because even though you don't see them, you tweet them, you text them, and you let them know that we're having something and this is the theme of the day. Does that make sense? Our church should be relevant. I think that's the last slide. Next slide. So now, for those in social media, be a social media evangelist. Update your profile. Update your profile and let people know who you are. Do not hide with anonymous names because you don't want people to know who you are. Let them know who you are, that you are a child of God, and you are telling them about hope and how not to be addicted, how to live a better life. You are a hotspot for the Lord Jesus Christ in the cyber world where millions of people are lost and seeking for identity. And you are the hotspot. You connect to Jesus Christ. Update your profile in social media. Next. Tweet a testimony or an applicable scripture verse every day to a friend. You never know what they're going through. Next. They will follow you on Instagram. At school, they'll follow you. Have many followers on Instagram, and you have them to come to church. Next, you are connected to them. They are waiting to hear your good news about how Christ has changed your life. Thank you.
Dr. Duff, we want to thank you for this presentation, one that has a lot of information, and one, no doubt, if as leaders and pastors we implement them in the way we do church, then indeed we would be seeing results that would benefit us, not only as a local church, but on a wider scale, a conference. And so, again, on behalf of the Church of God, the Seventh-day here in Jamaica, I express sincere thanks for the way in which you have informed us. And I trust that, well, I can tell you as leaders, indeed, we will be implementing, if not all, some of the things that you have shared with us this afternoon. Now, the floor is open for questions. I don't know how much time we have. You have a question?
Thank you, Pastor Duff. It was a very good presentation and an excellent presentation. All right, just two small questions here. I believe it's important to create opportunities for people to serve and allow people to know how important they are. But oftentimes the opportunity is created and persons some persons just will not serve. What do we do in a case like that? Some of our churches are in deep rural areas, and they do have a culture, right? And I realize that change oftentimes is not welcoming. And then sometimes they may have, as you mentioned, we should have children, but you find out that they have older set of people instead that they are not much younger set, or maybe they are none. So what do we do in a case like that? And the second question, you spoke about technology, right? In evangelism. Now, what if you're evangelizing to someone online? So let me clear up that a female is evangelizing to a male online, and he hit on her. Do you delete and block instantly, or you do that over time? Those are my questions. Thank you.
I forget your first question. Can you ask the first question again?
All right. So the first question, remember you spoke about creating opportunities for persons to serve in the church. Now I was saying that some of the churches are in deep rural areas, and they have a culture, right? And you may have older set of people than more younger set of people, right? And then they don't like changes, right? And what if the opportunities are created for persons to serve and they just refuse to serve? What do you do in a case like that?
Well, there must be a reason why those who are able to serve does not want to serve. I would first find out why they do not want to serve. If they're in the church and if they're in the church and the opportunity is created in the church and they don't want to serve, there must be a reason. So the leader then must sit with those persons and find out why is it that they don't want to serve. That would be a first step before moving forward. You understand what I'm saying? If they're able to and they don't want to and they're part of the church, then it's important to find out why. So a conversation with them is necessary. And your second question?
And the second question is, if a female, you spoke about technology, right? So if a female is evangelizing to a male online and the male hit on her, what do you suggest? You delete and block same time, or you do that over time? What do you do? What's your approach as it relates to that?
What would you do?
Delete him and block him same time.
Block him same time. But it's also an opportunity.
Maybe,
Invite
I
him to
don't
church.
know.
You see, he hits on you. Maybe that's a good thing. It depends on how you handle it. If a person hits on you online, as a woman, invite him to church. And then let your pastor know that you've been talking to this person, you feel that they're hitting on you, and you want, when they come to church, a pastor take over that conversation. But invite him to church. Do not continue allowing him to hit on you. Just say, look, I want you to, and he will come, because now he feels comfortable talking to you. So invite him to church. Don't just block him right away. Now, if he doesn't want to come, period, and he just keep doing that, then that's when you can do that, yeah. But invite him.
Hi, everyone. You guys spoke about the social media, and recently I started doing Bible study on TikTok. I was directed by God. At first I was hesitant because I'm like, do I really do this? People staring at me, so the fear was there, but thank you. But I prayed about it and decided to make the bold move, because if I allowed fear to take control, then I would be defeated. So on the first day, I started I saw about 10 to 15 persons. As I continued on one live, I saw actually 40 persons on one live. 40 persons. I'm like, God, really? 40 persons staring at me now, but over time I became comfortable, no longer fearful. What I realized is that while doing it, there were persons asking for me to pray for them. They were encouraging me and all of that. There were guys hitting on me for sure, but I ignored them, right? I ignored them and I encouraged them, right? So things gonna happen, both the negative and the positive, but we have to focus on the positive. Also, I received support from my church family and my family as well, and I noticed that even during a live session, persons started following me, so it's like my page was growing on a daily basis. So social media is definitely a tool we can use in this current, in this generation for sure, because many young persons reaching out, for example, and I would come on by a certain time, right? By a certain time. So I noticed a lot of changes, really. So I am motivated to continue. It's not always easy, I can tell you that, because it takes time, resilience, courage to continue doing the work of God. Because you will have persons there that will say negative stuff, but we have to be determined to spread the gospel. Because so many persons out there, they are still, they really don't know the truth. Yes, they really don't know the truth. So I am thankful to God for pointing me in that direction and for God to just continue using me, because, trust me, He has been faithful. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm going to encourage you to do one thing. When you make that move, always inform your pastor. Maybe you did, but you should always allow him to know what you're doing and get his advice, and to let him know the progress you're making and get his counsel as to how you could go about it differently or better. But keep your pastor informed and up to date as to what's happening, all right? Go ahead, my dear.
Yes, good afternoon, Pastor Duff. Thanks very much for your presentation. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm not sure if you're familiar with these phrases. If it's not broken, don't fix it. Or we're bringing the world in the church. Those are, common sayings being said by older brethren. I know you spoke about change, which I introduced in change, which I am in total agreement. So my question is, how can leaders introduce change without aggravating or offending or losing our older generation? And by older, I mean probably 70 and above, because a lot of them, they're not on our online Bible studies. They don't understand it. It seems so complex. They think it's irrelevant. So they more or less tune out. They're not inclined with it because everything will change and we adapt into the world. So how can you just lead us into that, please?
Thank you for the question. It's a very good question. And I think oftentimes when we try to make change and the older members kind of resist it, we kind of push them aside. Now, remember going back, who taught them the way they believe. Now, it's a good thing that people resist change and they don't easily give in to it. There are several reasons why people resist change, especially those who are older and have learned the things they have learned over the years. It doesn't change easily. You give an older person a cell phone, and he or she will have that cell phone forever without wanting a new one. Older people, the older we get, is the less we adapt to change, which is natural. And therefore, when leaders are making change, they should consider the resilience and the resistance to change of older folks, and to sit with them and to help them understand. So here's what Nehemiah did. Here's what Nehemiah did. The strategy that Nehemiah used. It's very, very important. Nehemiah went to Jerusalem. He didn't consult with anyone. He wanted first-hand evidence. So he looked around, all right, and he saw the state of affair. And he got the people, because some of them were older, priests and stuff like that. He didn't come to them and say, hey guys, we need to make a change right now. This is not working and that is not working. As some leaders tend to do. They impose a change and people naturally resist. What Nehemiah did, and here's what Nehemiah, and I'm paraphrasing here. Nehemiah said to them, we're in trouble. When you say that, you call the people together in a meeting and you said, brethren, we are in trouble. Everyone will say, oh my goodness, we are in trouble. Nehemiah said, we are in trouble. We're vulnerable. We're vulnerable to the enemy. They can come in any time and kill our children and our family. The people say, what shall we do, Nehemiah? We need to build a wall. He pointed out the issues first, the need for change, and let the people see the need. And when they see the need, they want a solution. And now, so you say to the older brethren, you know, you've been in church for so long. You notice the young people are leaving? Yes, Pastor, we see, but what can we do? Now you show them the issue. You don't push it on them. You slowly help them to understand, to see the issue. And then they're going to say, well, Pastor, what shall we do? And then you may say, well, we have a few options. And then slowly you introduce it to them. It may take a little while. But, here's what. The people who resist change are the ones who can become your greatest ally. Because the ones who resist it, they have a lot of followers. So you take the one who resists it, who have a lot of followers. Don't take the followers. Take the one who resists and say, hey, look, let's go for coffee. I'm taking you to dinner. And you sit with them and you say, look, and you share the vision with them. When they buy into it, they're going to go back to the other and say, we need to support Pastor. We really need, because you see, the people who resist it are your greatest ally, but you don't yet know. But when we come and we impose change, because we see it and we know it's needed, but the strategy we use can turn people off. Literally, turn people off. And they will not support it because people resist, they fear change, and sometimes they don't trust the leader because the leader is not true to their word. So there are many reasons. So all the people are your greatest ally because they give the most money. They'll give out of their nothing. They're the one who support the church with their tithe, with their offering, with their pension. They will give and give. You don't want to lose them and you don't want to upset them. So you need to know how to carefully, and I'm glad you say over 70 because then you might include me. All right, so I hope that kind of answers your question, how we deal with our sin. We don't lose nobody in the change process. Yes, my brother.
Pastor Duff, great presentation.
Thank you, sir.
Too rich, I would say, even. maybe too rich. But just segueing on the point my sister made, there are some stereotypes that older people resist change. I think it's not just older people, but everyone resists change. It's a natural thing. Change is normally very traumatic. And you've alluded to, the need for change management and to make sure that everybody is carried along with the change. And so we need some, change agents, and you've talked about that as well. I just want to say, as, anecdotally, a 90-plus-year-old who is very close to me, she is very adept at using most of the social media platforms, including emojis. She's quick on her fingers. And what I'd like to suggest is that the younger ones take the time to teach the older ones, because you may find that they're not as slow as you think they are. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for saying that, sir. And this is something that can make the older people feel good, when the younger one takes time to teach them. All right? That's an awesome contribution, sir. Thank you.
We have 5 minutes more. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, sir. I wish to commend you, Dr. Duff, on your presentation. Very informative, very interesting. Based on what the missionary Ricketts had asked, her first question, about someone eating on the person. I had some university students attending one of my congregation, and they would bring the male friends would follow them, and I encouraged it. Some of the brethren were telling me, no. And they are telling me that it's textbooks I'm using. But I'm an avid reader, very avid. And I broaden my horizon. So I encourage the young men to come. Yes, I see that they are really, interested in the females. But you give them the word, you don't beat them down. So I am aware, sir, of many females who invited male friends, and when they come to church, they accept Jesus Christ as Savior, and it's not that female who invited them they're along with right now. And it works both ways. I am also aware of females who invite male to church, and they are strong in Jesus Christ right now. So I would encourage, just as you say, I wish to endorse it, that if someone is hitting on you, invite them to church and let your minister, let the elder know that he or she, because it could be a missionary also, can guide that person. So I wish to commend you, sir. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for saying that.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. I just want to say, Pastor, excellent presentation. It brings me back to when I was doing the theology. I was a part of the theology group also. And sitting in class each Sunday and just listening your advice and just listening your presentation. Also, Dr. Jacobs and other tutors who teach us each Sunday. And I want to encourage all those who have not signed up for the theology classes to do so. These are some of the wonderful presentations that you will get. If there's anybody underneath the tent who have already been a part of the theology school, let me see your hand. Everybody say hi. I don't hear you. Everybody say hey. But we are all a part of it, and I encourage the rest of us to also be a part of it. We learn a lot. And I am so thankful, sir, that you remind us that we are positive role models, Wi-Fi, or hotspots for the church. We are not just our own. We don't just exist. We are role models and hotspots. So whatever we do, the things that we do, is showcased not only in our own lives, but also in the church. People look on us. And so we should always endeavor to do so, be the positive role models, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So I'm the last person. Thank you. So good afternoon, Sir Duff and congregation. So I was listening to your presentation, and I just have a few things I wanted some insight on. So context is very specific to how we operate in our local churches. And one thing is important as youth directors, I've seen each local church operates differently. Even though we're a conference, when you've gone to certain local churches, they operate somewhat different in terms of how they provide leadership to the younger ones, right? And Pastor Bailey said that might be good. I'm not sure if it is good or if it's bad, because standardization is something that we're supposed to be having as a conference. And one thing I've recognized that, and you said it, communities are different. The local churches in the rural areas are totally different from the local churches in the more urban areas. Pastor Jacob's Pointing Case has a church on Red Hills Road, and how he tries to evangelize will be totally different than how we would evangelize for a church in Darling Spring. Now, the problem is, can we really adopt what you say across board? Because in like manner, if I'm working in Red Hills Road versus I'm working in Darling Spring, how do you really generalize evangelism one? How do you generalize congregational worship, where you do not have Wi-Fi in Darling Spring? That's very good, but Pastor Jacobs and Pastor Harley now have ACs in their churches, and so you now have persons who would say, okay, let's highlight those two churches first to come because they have ACs. So I'm just trying to understand if we're going to go by what you say, can it really be textbook, or we would have to really just look at it in a context that, okay, each leader really has to be contextually aware of how they operate in their space and judge how they evangelize. And is that a good thing in certain regard? Because it would mean that everybody's operating differently. And if so, can there really be a generalization?
Well, my church in Brampton, you come to my church in Brampton and you go to another, if you come to my church in Brampton and you go to another for a church, we have certain things in common, but we serve different communities. And so there will be some differences depending on the context and the community that you serve, all right? The community you serve. I went to this store in one of the malls. I wasn't going to buy this watch. I wouldn't have the money to buy it, but I wanted to know the price. So I went to this mall and I asked them if they have a Rolex watch. And they said to me, they don't sell Rolex watch. And I said, why? You're a jewelry store. Why don't you sell it? He said to me, I forget if he or she, let's say he. He said to me, the people in this community does not have the buying power to buy this watch. So even if 2 people buy this watch a year, it wouldn't be benefit to us. So we carry what the community needs. This one of the same store go to another mall that will carry because that community has the buying power. So they've done their research on the community to see the needs and the buying power of the community. It's the same thing with the church. Each community that the church exists in may have different needs. It may have older people or younger people than the other community. If you have exactly the same thing, you'll find that one church will grow and the other one will stifle because the community need is different. And therefore, though we have unity, but there is differences and variability even within unity, depending on the and the area that you serve. And so that must be considered. So though you're unified, but there is diversity and there is differences and variations within even unity itself. So you maybe cater more for a younger generation because of where your church exists. And another person might be older generation, and they have to have programs and stuff for those kind of person. So don't think that the same thing that works for one church will work exactly the same way for the other. So the church must be prepared to have some differences between themselves, depending. And the pastor will do his evaluation of the community in which he'll even know what program works best for that community and stuff like that, how to serve that community differently. There are certain places in Jamaica that McDonald's will not be planted. There are certain places in Jamaica that you will not find Kentucky because certain community people go to maybe high-class restaurant and not to those local restaurants. So Kentucky know that they will not prosper very much if they plant themselves in a certain community. But they plant themselves in a community where they know that most people will line up to get it. And so the same thing with church. You must know the community and what their needs are, and therefore prepare to serve that community. Does that make sense? All right. Thank you so very much.
Again, thank you, Dr. Duff. And thank you all for sitting and listening attentively, and also for the questions that you have asked. Others, no doubt, have benefited from the questions. Again, thanks. At this time, I just want to hand over to the chairman.
Put your hands together again for Dr. Duff. I join in my commendation, sir. The information shared is invaluable. And no doubt we will put to use that which has been imparted so that the Church of God will be more effective in carrying out our God-given mandate to serve the body of Christ and the wider community. Thanks also to Dr. Jacobs for, facilitating, for being the moderator of this session. So earlier, we had the elections for the nominations committee.